a Ruger Mark 1 target pistol, empty. Ruger Mark 1 replacement magazine. Count them. Just in case you missed it, let's do that again. This time I'm going to top it off. Same Mark 1 magazine. Hey YouTube, I'm Mars1952, and today I'm going to tell you how to get 11 rounds into your Ruger Mark 1, 2, or 3 magazine. They're meant to take between 9 and 10 rounds depending. Now in the previous video I took the Mark 1 magazines like this one and chopped a little bit off the follower so it would hold 10 rounds, but now we're going to make them hold 12 total, 1 in the chamber, 11 in the magazine. The way you do that, it's pretty simple. You take the magazine block retaining plunger. It's a complicated word that for a magazine floor plate retainer. That's what Ruger calls it. And you grind off some. So, if you measure the factory block retainer, so we can get that on there, it measures about 1 inch and 152 thousandths. If you measure the bullet, measure the rim, and then subtract half of the rim, because it staggers. The bullets stagger in there like this. So you only need to measure half the rim. And that measures 0.248 inches. So you subtract 0.248 inches from 1.52 inches and you end up with 0.904 inches. So theoretically, if you grind these things down like this one, grind them down to, well, this is a little bit smaller, 0.904 inches, that'll leave you just enough room to add another bullet. But what happens first is you end up with the spring, like this one here. Is that focused? The spring compresses to its maximum limit and it won't let you quite get down. Even if you take off more than, take it down to 0.9 inches, it doesn't compress that far because the spring takes up the space. So I've found that all the way as big as 0.965 works just as well, because like I said, it doesn't compress any further than that anyway. So let's get to modifying the pin. Let me move this in. I'll zoom in here. Got to chuck it up. Make sure it's not wobbling. And go about this slow and easy, otherwise this will bind and knock it out of whack. Okay, you can see that I've ground off most of what was beveled before. Now I'm going to put a bevel on it. There's the bevel. Now I'm going to take the burr off. Now I'll touch it up on the fine wheel off camera. Now maybe a little bit of work with a piece of sandpaper and it'll be done. Alright, so here I have one that's ground down. I'm going to chuck it up, put it back in the chuck. So put this here, we can see it. Make sure it's in there straight. That one's a little crooked. Alright, it's not as important that it's in there straight for this application, or this demonstration, because I'm going to use a file, if I can find it. So I'm just going to take a file, run the drill, and hold the file up against it. If this works better, now normally this is the way I do it. I hold it on the table and do it because it's nice and stable, but I'm trying to put it down here where you can see it. So just go over it with a file. So it's nice and smooth. Then if you're really compulsive, you can take a piece of sandpaper, polish it up, wipe off the metal dust. There you go. So now take it loose. Alright, so now we have one other problem to take care of, and that is the little tooth marks in the end of the plunger. So those, you just need to take the burr off. So if you find the place where it's got a little bit of a burr on it, and you file the burr off, the actual tooth marks really don't make any difference. It's that burr that sticks up over the edge where the chuck has squished it over to make a burr. Clean that up. Now we can put it back together. So it's nice and polished. Here's the magazine. You can see that. The plunger, or the follower, is still there with the follower button. I'm going to keep close track of these. I've lost one already. I'm going to have to order a new one. That's $2 down the drain. So you take the plunger, put it in the spring. Get this where you can see it. And make sure you don't kink this spring. If you kink the spring, it's going to not work so well and you end up with jams. Slide it in there, hold it with your thumb. Make sure it doesn't go flying across the room because you'll have to hunt it down. Take your magazine block, also known as a floor plate by most other people, and slide it in there. Alright, so now it's in place. You heard it snap in place. Sometimes, if you haven't gotten all the burr off of these things, it'll hang up in the floor plate or the block. So it wants to go in there like that, all the way down. So this one has too much of a burr on it, won't even spin in there. It doesn't need to spin, but hasn't been cleaned up yet. So it needs to go all the way in. Sometimes it won't go all the way in. You just take your loading helper, squeeze it down, and it'll snap in. You'll be able to see the ring. You'll be able to see the ring right down here to see if it's set deep enough. Alright, so here I have the various magazines lined up. This is a Mark I magazine with 9 rounds in it. You can see out where the follower stops. Here's a Mark I magazine with 11 rounds in it. You can see the magazine, the follower button's almost all the way down to the point where it would come out. This is a Mark II magazine with 11 rounds in it. This is a Mark III magazine with 11 rounds. And here's a Mark II with 10 rounds. You can see where the follower button sort of ends up there. You'd think it would be farther down than that, but so anyway, you could just barely squeeze 11 rounds in there. The tip for this magazine modification came from one of my alert viewers, and he posted a comment they gave the rough outline of what to do here. So I took that and ran with it. I'm going to put his name up here someplace so you can see his YouTube username. And Alert Viewer also commented on my modifying the magazines by dimpling them right here. He said that you don't need to do that. You can modify the magazine latch on the Mark 1. So right here, see, that's real sharp. On the Mark II, they've rounded that off. So he suggests just rounding that. I'm going to give that a try and see what happens. Now this is going to make metal filings. So I don't know how much this costs from Ruger, but you can get extended aftermarket magazine latches that would probably fix this problem. I've only found them that are available for the Mark II, not for the Mark I. But I think the Mark II latch will fit on at least the late model Mark I's. Focus, there we go. Alright, I took a little bit off there. It's not sharp anymore. Let's see what it does. Get the metal dust out of there. Okay, so I'll take a Mark III magazine and try it in here and see what it does. Still hangs up a little bit. So I've got to take a little bit more off of that. This pistol is well used and has marks on it, so it doesn't have any collector's value. Let's try this again. See how that differs from a Mark I magazine. Here's a Mark I magazine. Replacement magazine, that is. It goes out, now it's working just as smoothly on the Mark III magazine as it does on the Mark I magazine. So someday I might replace that magazine latch with a Mark II and see what happens. Alright, start this again. So another thing I forgot to mention in the first movie, the first video I did on this, is I had this Ruger Mark I magazine, the original magazine, laying on the table, but I forgot to point it out. Originally they came with this type of magazine that's got a crimped on floor plate. It doesn't come off. The way you take it apart, I'll show you in a minute, but it's different. This is the Ruger replacement magazine. This is what you get now. It looks just like a Mark II magazine. The only difference is the follower is a different color and it's a little bit longer. So it keeps it from holding more than 9 rounds for who knows what reason. So let me take this thing apart. The really old Ruger standards, I think that was even before they came out with the Mark I, had the follower button on the opposite side. See, this is one of the later model ones, and it has facilities to put it on either side. So to change that, you pull down on the button, put anything that'll fit in here, so that you can push the push the follower down, and you push it down until the button is lined up with that hole, and pull the button out right there. So you pull the button out and you can put it on the other side, which I don't need it on that side, I need it on this side. So you can also take it apart. You pull that button and that's how you get the thing to come apart. and it'll spring across the room if you let it. Here you go. It comes apart. You see that needs to be cleaned. So I'll just leave that way and clean it. I don't know if you can get these springs anymore. I keep this. I don't use this magazine because I can get better ones now, and this is sort of a collector's item, so I just keep it in the closet. I think that's finally it. One drawback to this modification is you're going to be compressing the magazine spring completely, and it's probably going to shorten the life of the magazine spring. But at least right now you can get magazine springs from Ruger for $2 a piece. I have a bunch of them on back order just in case I wear these out. So we'll see how that works out. But you can always download them to 8, 9, 10, whatever you want to put in there. So now you have formerly 9 and 10 round magazines that hold 11 rounds. So have fun and suck on that, Diane Feinstein.